I never expected my wife to pull a shotgun on me for a mistake that shattered our love. I still remember the way the sun stained the living room with a golden hue that day. It felt warm, calming. But in an instant, everything shifted. I will never forget that feeling, the heavy silence that followed my words. I just wanted to help, I pleaded, my voice trembling, heart racing. Sarah stood before me, tears streaming down her cheeks like tiny rivers of sorrow. Her hands, once soft and inviting, gripped the cold steel as though it were a lifeline. I could see the betrayal burning in her eyes, an inferno that consumed our love, our history, all those whispers shared in the dark. But how did we get here? We had built our lives together amid dreams and laughter, two kids lost in their own world. We shared everything, our fears, our secrets, even that tiny necklace she always wore. Yet, on that fateful day, her love twisted into something unrecognizable. The memory of the argument swirled in my mind. A small mistake. I hadn't meant to accidentally reveal the truth about her father's past. The shame hidden in our family tree to think it would unravel our lives. My heart ached at the weight of that reality. With every word exchanged, I felt the fracture grow wider. You don't understand. She shouted, her voice breaking, echoing in the hollow room. And just like that, she drew the weapon. The world shrank to the barrel glinting in the light, cold and unforgiving. My breath hitched. Time slowed. Outside, the wind howled a mournful tune, the trees shuddered, and I could taste the salt of my own tears. It was surreal, like a nightmare I couldn't escape. Our love, once vibrant, now hung by a thread. I stood still, my heart pounding like a drum, waiting for the storm to pass. What's the point, Sarah? I rasped, my voice barely a whisper. We can work this out, but the shadows of doubt lingered between us. I could see her shaking, caught in a whirlwind of emotions, rage, loss, despair. How could I pull her back from the edge? And then came the silence. Heavy, suffocating. I dared to inch closer, my hands raised in surrender, hoping she would see I was still here, still fighting for us. The world fell away. But before I could reach her, a noise split the air, a crack that echoed through the hollow spaces of our love. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I stood there, frozen, as the echo of that crack reverberated through the air, drowning out the noise of the howling wind outside. I thought of how illusionary our lives had been, those moments spent together now hanging by a thread, tethered to a desperate plea, a chance for reconciliation I couldn't quite grasp. Please put it down, Sarah, I said again, this time with more urgency, my heart racing in concert with the dread that coiled tightly around it. We can talk about this. Just we can navigate through the pain together. The weight of those words hung suspended, as if the universe were gauging my sincerity. She lowered the shotgun briefly, doubt marring her beautiful features. In that fleeting moment, I saw the remnants of the woman I had fallen in love with, the one whose laughter once filled the quiet spaces of our home, the one who would dance in the kitchen while dinner simmered. I longed for that connection, that warmth, to sweep across the room like sunlight piercing through fog. Then it happened. She swallowed hard, emotion flashing through her gaze like lightning strikes. Why did you have to bring it up? She spat, her voice cracking like glass. You drew back the curtain on a past that I thought I could bury. I should have never spoken of it without your permission, I admitted, each syllable heavy with regret. But it was never meant to hurt you. I thought you deserved to know the truth, to face it with me. My hands trembled, reaching out to her without thought of my own safety. She was battling an internal storm, shards of confusion and heartbreak etched across her face. I was safe in my ignorance, and you took that away from me. Safe isn't real, Sarah. It's an illusion carved out of denial, I said softly, hoping she'd hear the care stitched into my words. We can't let the ghosts of our past trap us. I only want you to be free. With a sudden flare of strength, she steeled herself, raising the gun again. I don't even know who I am anymore. You've drawn back the curtain, and it's all chaos out there. How can I trust you? Her anguish clawed at me, filling the void with a fierce desperation. I stepped closer, praying the strength of my love would penetrate her walls. You have every reason to doubt me, but our journey doesn't end here. We have something real. It'll take time, but we can grow. Let me help you, let me help us. As her gaze flickered, uncertainty versus animosity, I took a deep breath. Remember our vows? The storms we weathered before? Remember the time in Paris, just the two of us beneath the stars? We told each other we could face whatever came our way. But silence resumed its oppressive grip, and I wondered if my words were mere ashes upon the wind. I had put everything on the line, my heart laid bare, and still, it felt as if the abyss yawned wider between us. Then, a distinct sound broke through the quiet, one that sent shivers down my spine. A soft knock on the door, soft yet insistent, like a heartbeat furthering the tension in the air. A voice I recognized rang out, Monica, our neighbor, who had been so kind to us over the years. Sarah. Is everything all right? We both stiffened, caught between this unwanted intrusion and the turmoil of our lives unraveling at a dizzying pace. I exchanged a glance with Sarah, fear and confusion mingling in the depths of her gaze. Just a minute. She shouted, her voice charged with a desperation I hadn't seen before. If the neighbors knew we were in this state, if they saw her like this, it might devastate all we had left. Please, Sarah, I said, urgent yet soft, don't let anyone else into this chaos. Let's just focus on us. For a breathless moment, I thought I saw her wavering yet again. But just as quickly, the fire in her eyes reignited. They can't know, she answered, assurance mingling with the fear. You don't understand. I can't let them see what we are. I can't trust you or myself. The realization of her turmoil felt like 1,000 ice picks lodged in my heart. Each word she spoke sent shards of pain through our already broken ties. Monica knocked again, her voice laced with concern, and just then, I understood. The foundations of our life were unsteady, and the knock sounded an alarm for all to hear. Get out! Sarah suddenly shouted, panic flashing in her eyes directed at me. Just go. Before it gets worse. And in that moment, the weight of our fragile existence felt too heavy to bear, each second piercing through time, until the whole world felt like it would swallow us whole. I turned toward the door, heart pounding, every piece of me torn between what I had built with her and the prospect of losing it entirely. As I reached for the handle, a surge of confusion and despair crashed over me like waves tumbling onto the shore, leaving nothing but a scattered mess in their wake. All I could do was step into the unknown and leave the echoes of our love behind. What awaited me outside would change everything. The door creaked open, and the fresh night air rushed in, stinging my cheeks as the weight of the moment clung to me like a shroud. My heart thudded loudly in my chest, not from fear but from the raw anguish echoing in Sarah's eyes, the last glimpse I had before stepping out into the twilight, that thin boundary between the chaos that awaited beyond and the chaos I had just escaped. That I ventured into the chill, the world outside feeling foreign and alien after the emotional storm inside. Monica's sharp concerns followed me like shadows. John, what's going on? You look, everything's fine, I interjected, pushing past her worry with a perfunctory smile that felt grotesquely out of place. I could see the confusion mingling with the deep lines of her concern, but the truth lingered too heavily in my throat to share. I knew I needed to shield her, to shield Sarah, even as the fissures between us began to deepen into chasms. Monica stepped closer, her voice lowering to a whisper that felt weighted. Is everything really all right? You can talk to me. We had shared laughter about trivial matters, and she had often been the comforting presence during lighter times, but tonight the air hung thick and heavy with unspoken fears. It took all my strength to shake my head, guilt lacing my silence. How could I burden her with our shattered world when I couldn't even hold it together myself? I turned away, seeking the warmth of darkness to cloak my turmoil, but each step away from our home felt like severing ties. I had abandoned the sanctuary that had once echoed with laughter. With love now it felt less a home and more a battlefield. The cold evening ignited a longing I couldn't escape, and I made my way down the street. As the minutes dragged on, I tried to wrap my mind around the twisted snare of our situation. My love for Sarah had been boundless, but with each layer of defense she built in the face of our troubles, I began to feel as if I were searching for a way through a maze without a map. The revelation of the past haunted her, but it haunted me too. The love we once shared felt like a fraying tapestry, threads unraveling more with every memory I conjured. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught my eye. William, our neighbor, was coming toward me, hands burrowed deep in his pockets against the brisk air. His features hardened with concern when he noticed my silence. "John," he called, pace quickening to meet me. "I just saw Sarah. Is she all right?" William's face radiated genuine worry that peeled back the layers of my own panic. The sincerity in his tone cracked something open within me, a tender chisel against the icy stone mass that had formed in my chest. We were having a moment. I struggled to keep my voice steady. "It's complicated right now." He nodded knowingly, a look in his eyes that told me he'd witnessed more than one storm behind closed doors. "If it's broken, it can be fixed. Just remember, sometimes it takes others to see the light before we can." His words lingered with a softness that struck against the jagged edges of my fear, and amidst that vulnerable exchange, a flicker of hope wormed its way through my despair, igniting the possibility that perhaps we could find our way back to each other, provided we dared to confront the chaos together. "It's just hard, you know," I confided, feeling the heaviness pouring out with every word. "Everything feels lost. I've seen chaos before, John," he replied. "But what brings people together is vulnerability. You don't have to face this alone." As we stood underneath the dim glow of the street lamp, surrounded by the darkness that often felt suffocating, I wondered for the first time if there was still space for us to reconnect, if maybe just maybe there could be an end to the chaos in that vulnerability. "Thank you," I said finally, heart drumming steadily once more. "You have no idea how much this means right now." I realized my solitude hadn't been the resolution, but a shared burden might just light a path to redemption. Armed with this renewed sense of hope, I turned back towards my home, my steps quickening as I pointed myself toward Sarah. Perhaps, if I could face the storm and hold her through it, we could find a way to shatter the illusions that had bound us. But as I rounded the corner, the sudden shattering of glass met my ears, sharp and terrible, like a death knell echoing through the night. My heart sank as a terror unfurled inside, urging me forward with a jolt. I sprinted the rest of the distance, fear surging through me, each step a desperate plead. As I burst through the door, me heart pounding, breath hitching, I was met with a scene that left me paralyzed. Sarah stood frozen with the shotgun still in her hands, her eyes wide and glazed with shock, staring not at me but at the shattered window, where a figure in black melted into the shadows beyond, an intruder in our lives who had come to disturb our tempest further. "Someone was here," she whispered, and in that moment, I understood that the chaos we faced together had only just begun. The room felt suspended in time as the horrific echo of the shattered glass settled around us like a shroud. The immediate danger had passed, but its imprint lingered and clawed at my chest. My eyes darted between the weapon in Sarah's trembling hands and her wide, terrified gaze, so unlike the woman I had known intimately for years. "What happened?" I managed to choke out, each word saturated with urgency and disbelief. Her breath came in short gasps, like the frightened animal she seemed to be. "I heard something." I thought she paused, the shotgun lowering slightly, but the fear remained etched in her expression, a reflection of all our vulnerabilities surfacing in this moment. "I thought someone was coming for you." The adrenaline seeped from my veins, a new kind of fear took hold. "Sarah, you can't keep doing this," I replied, feeling the ghost of our earlier conversation hover like a phantom. "We have to talk about what we're facing together, whatever it is." But how could she look at me now? Her mind was still racing, and the wall she'd built shrouded her heart, walls reinforced with the jagged shards of trust that had been bludgeoned by confusion and betrayal. I stepped forward, the need to connect battling with the urge to maintain my distance, reminding myself of the turbulence that swirled around us. "What do you want me to say, John?" she snapped, her voice trembling beneath layers of frustration and fear. "Am I supposed to just let go of the chaos? Do I just pretend everything's fine while I feel like I'm losing my mind?" Each word struck like a percussive beat of anguish, and I felt the weight of my own failures press down harder. "I want you to believe in us, in what we used to have," I said earnestly. "I need you to let me in." That I reached for her hand, but she jerked back as if I'd scorched her. The distance amplified every unresolved thought between us, leaking regret like an open wound. "You can't just stand there and act like everything is normal," she said desperately. "I can't even recognize this place anymore, John. The home I thought we had is falling apart." Tears sparkled in her eyes, reflections of the deep-seated pain that seemed locked inside, waiting to be released. Moments unfolded like a film strip, flashing memories of her laughter echoing throughout our home, our tender discussions under soft sunsets, and the promises we clung tower. Are they just a facade now? Had we truly become strangers? "I'm not giving up on us, not yet," I insisted, feeling fire thread through my veins as passion ignited a searing conviction. "We can face these demons together. You don't have to carry this weight alone." The tension hung between us, throbbing like a heartbeat, neither knowing whether to embrace it or to shove it back into the hidden corners of our minds. Just as her expression began to soften, the sound of heavy footsteps outside jolted us both. A flicker of panic crossed her features, and I watched helplessly as the resolve she'd begun to summon flickered like a candle in a storm. "Stay back," she warned in a wavering voice, leveling the gun toward the window, eyes flaring with new energy and fierce determination. "I won't let anyone hurt you again, John." "Not again." My heart raced at her words, stirring the notion that the chaos was no longer just an external force we needed to confront. It lay within us, driving wedges and threatening to tear us apart. "Sarah, wait," I began, but the sound of the footsteps turned into a figure materializing through the doorway behind me, the silhouette cloaked in shadows. "John, what the hell is happening here?" Monica's voice sliced through the thick air, both a call for sanity and a stark reminder of our precarious reality that felt like it was teetering on the brink of disaster. Everything felt like it was crumbling just as I thought we might be able to stitch together the shattered pieces of our lives. As the tension escalated, shadows loomed larger than life, shrouding the path ahead. And just like that, I realized that the depth of our turmoil was still uncharted territory. In that moment, as tempers flared, a devastating truth crept into my mind. I had promised Sarah we would face the darkness together, only to recognize it had already seeped into our walls. Time hung frozen, leaving us all suspended between the chaos inside and the uncertainty outside, where danger felt palpable and healing felt impossibly far away. And it dawned on me as I glanced at the wide-eyed fear in Sarah's expression that the real battle was just beginning. The air crackled with silent tension, every moment lingering like a held breath, each heartbeat amplifying the reality that threatened to weave a darker tapestry through our lives. Monica stood there, her eyes darting between Sarah and me, crystal blue depths reflecting surprise, confusion, and an unsettling assemblage of concern. "Put the gun down, Sarah. Please," she implored, her voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of urgency that I couldn't look away from Sarah. The flicker of resolve that had briefly surged within her was now shrouded by a tempest of wariness and pain, her finger brushing the trigger like a fraying thread on the brink of snapping. "You don't understand," Sarah stammered, her voice quaking, every syllable an echo of her shattered confidence. "You can't just walk in here and pretend like everything's okay, Sarah. I know it feels like everything's spiraling," Monica began, her tone firm yet gentle, reaching out toward her, "but you're scaring us. This isn't how we solve things, and you know that." I took a cautious step closer and felt the swell of hope against the suffocating fear around us. My instincts screamed at me to diffuse the turmoil, to remind Sarah that not all threats were exterior. "We need to talk, Sarah," I urged, choosing my words as carefully as if I were handling glass. "Talk and let it out. I'm here. We're both here." A tremor coursed through her frame, and for a fleeting moment, the weight of her solitude hung heavy in the air. Do you even see? Can you see how alone I really am? She begged, her voice sharp as the gun in her hands. Do you see the betrayal that festers in this house? The lies that spin a web I can't escape? My heart twisted painfully at her admission, the jagged edge of truth slicing deeper than I ever thought possible. Sarah, I said, voice thick with emotion. I never meant to betray you. I know I messed up, but together. She laughed bitterly, a painful sound that echoed off the walls, reverberating like a haunting refrain. Where was together 3 weeks ago when I begged you to come home? When you vanished without a word? Monica inhaled sharply, glancing at me with questions written across her face. I felt exposed, my long-held secrets and regrets positioned under a spotlight they had tried so desperately to avoid. I thought I was protecting you, I whispered, words almost lost in the gravity of Sarah's anger. Be why shutting me out? She shouted, eyes ablaze. By thinking you were defending my heart from the truth. Don't you see that you've only built a prison for both of us? As the confrontation reached its fever pitch, I felt the enormity of the storm brewing not just around us but within the very fabric of our relationship. The ghost of stolen moments loomed ominously, and memories of laughter softened by the edges of betrayal felt like sand slipping through my fingers. Monica took a step forward, her voice rising above the tension. Sarah, please. Whatever happened between you two, let's not make more mistakes tonight. Right now, we can work together. We can still save this. But it all starts with trust. That a flicker of uncertainty crossed Sarah's face, an almost imperceptible shift that ignited a tenuous thread of hope in my chest until Rafe's voice echoed ominously from the entryway. What's going on in here? Everything froze again, like a still photo edged with the consequence of another moment crashing upon us. Rafe, who carried the weight of our shared histories and complications, stepped through the doorway, a light filtering behind him. But the moment Rafe's eyes settled upon the shotgun, darkness clouded his features, the atmosphere thickened as apprehension replaced hope. The sight sent Sarah reeling back, the gun slipping slightly from her hands as the anger extinguished against the stark reality of our gathering storm. No. This wasn't meant for you. She faltered, colors draining from her face, revealing the depths of her panic. Put it down, Sarah. Rafe commanded, stepping forward, authority wrapped tightly around his anger. Before someone gets hurt, don't you dare come any closer. She shouted, fear intertwining with her defiance. The moment hung suspended, saturated with unresolved tension and burgeoning dread. I reached out, my voice cracking, please Sarah, listen. We can talk. Just put it down. But as desperation clawed at the corners of my heart, I realized this was no longer just about saving our relationship. The shadows around us mutated, swirling in chaotic patterns as Rafe's presence threatened a reckoning that had been foreshadowed for far too long. My mind raced, contemplating the implications of this colossal miscalculation as doubt seeped into my veins. Then, in the harrowing silence that followed, a revelation crystallized in the air, volatile and terrifying. You think this was all my choice? You think I'm the only one to blame? She spat, her eyes glinting with a revelation I could not yet grasp, a truth buried beneath our shared pain. And before I could process the ramifications, Sarah's next words sliced through whatever semblance of normalcy we had managed to cling to. You just don't know why I really pulled the trigger, John. Neither of you do. My heart stumbled, caught at the precipice of impending disaster. The uncertainty looming just beyond her revelation clung to me like a shroud, thickening with the stubborn realization that the depth of our strife was just beginning to unravel before us, a tangled thread of fear and revelation waiting to explode. In the aftermath of Sarah's outburst, the atmosphere shifted, thickening with unuttered truths as I struggled to comprehend her implication. My mind raced, trying to preserve a sense of stability amid the chaos she unleashed. Glancing at Rafe, I saw a brewing storm of conflicting emotions, protective instincts battling the growing need for understanding. Sarah, please, what are you talking about? I whispered, desperation creeping into my voice. It felt as if the ground was giving way beneath me, and I was powerless to stop the collapse. She shook her head, her expression both haunted and resolute. You think I'm the only one who's been lying. You think love conquers all when your walls are taller than you can climb. The tremor in her hands betrayed the turmoil she battled within, but for a moment, her rage seemed to fuse with strength, ignited perhaps by the realization of all the buried heartache. Monica, standing as an unyielding anchor between us, softened her approach. Sarah, whatever it is, we want to hear you. Let it out. You don't have to face this alone. For a fleeting second, the environment transformed. The sound of Monica's voice wove through the fabric of our tension like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Just as Sarah seemed to shatter under the weight of the world, the tiniest flicker of hope sparked. But then Rafe took a tentative step closer, and the warmth dissipated. Are you trying to deflect blame? Because this moment it's yours, and we need you to be honest about what's going on. His voice vibrated with authority, but there was an underlying plea shading his words. He wasn't just asking for truth, he was urging Sarah to reclaim her power. As her gaze darted between us, I could see the walls she had built around herself start to tremble. This wasn't merely about the gun, it was about recognition, about years of unspoken fears that had festered like a wound beneath the surface. If I'm the villain in your story for wanting the truth, then fine. She cried, tears framing her aversion, her voice wavering between rage and despair. But you don't know what I saw, John. You didn't see him. Questions knitted tightly in my mind, the corners of my consciousness tightening with each confession that swirled like a tempest in a cage. Each fleeting moment of clarity was overshadowed by the horrors yet to be revealed. Who? I stammered, confusion entwined with a burgeoning terror. Who did you see? What happened, Sarah? A shudder swept through her as if recalling a memory that had been tucked away yet bore an insurmountable weight. I saw you and him. The accusation hung heavy in the air, taut with betrayal. Rafe exchanged a quick, incredulous glance with me, the shock magnifying between us. What do you mean him? What are you talking about, Sarah? Don't act like you're blindsided, she hissed, frustration igniting anew. You think my father just left? That he vanished into thin air after all those years? I thought it was a Choicean escape. But then I saw you, John, laughing and loitering around places he used to be. Just after everything. What lay beneath her revelation started to unfurl like a dark tapestry. Paralyzed by fear, I could feel the blood draining from my face. You think I chose to hurt you? Maybe you didn't mean to, but your actions, she gestured wildly at Rafe and me. Your actions speak louder than any words you could offer, Sarah. Wait, I paused, scrambling within my mind to piece together the shards. You have to believe me. I never intended to. Suddenly, a realization pierced through it all, sharp like a blade. Your father. I breathed, dread curling menacingly in my chest. The accident, was he involved? But before she could answer, the sound of footsteps thudded hastily from the hallway, diverting our attention as Emily, our neighbor and a close friend, rushed into the room, her face drawn tight with concern. What's going on? I heard shouting. Caught in the crossfire of emotional entanglement, the dynamics shifted yet again. Sarah's fingers audibly trembled around the gun, loyalty standing against raw fear. Threats poised over the fragile connection between us all. In Emily's presence, the tension transformed painfully, judgments hung in the air unuttered. Get away from her. Rafe snapped, instinctively stepping between Sarah and Emily, protective as if shielding a secret. But Sarah turned her rage towards Rafe, lashing out. Don't. This is not about you being the hero. She's not the answer we need. Emily's gaze shifted back and forth, confusion heavy on her brow, and the charged moment hovered precariously. I sensed the collective ache we felt together, the burden of unresolved fears hanging beneath the surface like a dark current threatening to drag us under. In that fleeting moment of chaos, the weight of Sarah's words pressed upon all of us, echoing with quiet desperation. Something fused between us, for I could not deny the shared torment each of us bore, a bond forged in moments of raw honesty we had long avoided. Yet, as I searched Sarah's tear-streaked face, a sense of dread coiled tightly in my gut, knowing there might be no turning back. The revelation of her pain mirrored my own, the acceptance of truths synonymous with abandonment and hope. Sarah, I whispered, let's not let this moment slip away. Please, just tell us everything, but as her blue eyes met mine, a flicker of resolve ignited, defiant yet wounded. You think this is the end of it? She murmured fiercely, you don't even know the half of it, John, and just like that, a chasm opened between us, each secret, each whisper of the past threatening to unravel everything we once held dear, unearthing deeper wounds that had festered too long beneath the fragile surface of our lives. The room felt like a fragile glass sculpture, poised between beauty and destruction, every inhale stinging with the possibility of explosion. I steadied my breathing, trying to match Sarah's rhythm, though hers was the kind of chaotic melody that echoed pain rather than assurance. The gun trembled in her grip, casting a shadow that blotted my heart and filled the edges with dread. Emily's lips parted as if to speak, but the silence constricted around us, a cocoon of unexpressed emotion smothering any sparkle of hope that might linger. What are you talking about, Sarah? She asked, her voice a whisper laced with anxiety. What do you mean? This isn't the way to resolve anything, isn't it? Sarah shot back, her breath coming fast and furious. Maybe it's the only way to get people to Listento see the truth instead of the facade. With every syllable, a tremor of recognition grazed my skin. I glanced at Rafe, his brow lined with concern but his stance unyielding, a protective wall for the chaos. But then, I realized, he too bore the weight of shared histories, his past entwined with Sarah's in ways I hadn't yet grasped. This was no longer just about her hurt, it was an unraveling thread that could tug at my own. What happened to your father, Sarah? I asked again, desperation punctuating my tone, aware that we danced around the main wound. What do you know about that accident? Do you want to know, John? She snapped, her anger bubbling over in desperate waves, breaking against layers I had thought were impenetrable. Do you really want to know why I dragged this curse of a gun here today? My heart quickened as I met her eyes, glistening with anguish and fury. I can't handle guesswork. Tell me what you mean. Fine. You want truth. Okay. She took a shaky breath, grounding herself even as her resolve wavered. I thought he died because of something he did. Something he couldn't escape from, something he didn't want us to know. Tears chipped away at her resolve, cascading down in a silent elegy for a father she'd learned to hate in the wake of his absence. Mom always said it was an accident, but I didn't believe her. I found something, a letter. An old friend of his, they were involved in something bigger. I saw the name, John. His name. Her voice cracked like a wave crashing against the shore, shattering the fragile calm we had struggled to maintain. Something like fear tightened my throat. Whose name? What are you saying, Sarah? Who was he involved with? Martin, she whispered, the name carried heavy in the air like a funeral dirge. I saw you with him. The places you both were, the conversations. I never thought you'd betray me this way. What? No. My pulse raced, confusion swirling dangerously close to despair. I would never. Enough. Rafe interjected, voice slicing through despair. Don't derail this, John, but the connections were unspooling threads across the void of my mind. You're saying I was connected to your father's death? How? I don't even know Martin. The anguish swirled in me like a cyclone. How could you not know? Sarah's eyes blazed with the fire of shattered trust. You were in the same buildings, stood in conversations, painted smiles while he wallowed. I thought everyone was lying. Her voice broke, the tumult of emotions reaching a fever pitch. If you know nothing, why have you surrounded yourself with their shadows? Time seemed to stretch into eternity, the world closing in around us as we grappled with a tumult of confusion, love, rage, and loss. I felt raw as secrets, accusations, and betrayals pulsed through the air like a drug that carved into our hearts. Please, Emily urged, her voice a beacon of quiet amid the storm. This isn't getting us anywhere. Sarah, put the gun down. We can figure this out together. No, you don't understand. Sarah cried, her emotions spiraling, crushing the hope within all of us. This is all I have left. If I put it down after everything, it means I choose to trust again, and after what I've discovered, I don't think I can do that, and then the weight of her words pressed down on me. It appeared that the truths we all harbored within ourselves and towards each other had interwoven threads that could unravel everything. John, you have to tell me you had nothing to do with Martin and my father. You have to affirm it. Her voice was bordering on desperation, the truth held heavy in my chest as I opened my mouth, the instinct to protect weaving through me like a lifeline. I don't know why they were involved, but Sarah. I swear to you I was never part of this web, but just as hope glimmered, sudden footsteps thundered towards us again. This time, it was Jones, the police officer I recognized from days at the precinct, his voice echoing from the hallway. Open up. We heard shouting, I can't let them take me. Sarah trembled, the gun shaking in her grasp, panic surged through my veins. The ground beneath me felt perilous as realization washed over me like molten steel. With authorities closing in, the very future I had yearned to protect from this chaos was crumbling away. Sarah, I stepped forward slowly, craving the connection that felt suspended, hoping our bond could tether her to reason. You don't have to choose this. Not now, but as I reached out to her, a flicker of uncertainty passed through her eyes. As I approached, ready to bridge the divide with whatever love remained, she glanced towards the door, eyes flashing between desperation and freedom. In that fragile moment, she stepped back, and a decision lurked in the air, strong enough to shake the very foundations beneath us. Before I could reach her, she whispered almost inaudibly, "Then you'll never know the whole truth," before the situation spiraled into chaos. And in an instant, the door burst open, a world of sirens and light flooding the room, and I braced for the storm. The blinding light from the doorway pierced through our fragile bubble of pain, scattering the shadows of our trust and revealing the raw edges of our friendship. The officer's voice echoed in stark contrast to Sarah's despair, a reminder of the world outside this room, the real world we had been trying to evade. I felt the air thicken, the gun wavering in her hand like the tenuous bond we shared. Put the weapon down, Sarah. Jones shouted, a calm yet authoritative presence. You don't have to do this. I could see the internal battle waging within her, a tempest of hurt and fury clashing against the flickering flame of reason. She glanced at me, a question buried deep in her eyes, tethering her to memories that felt like a lifetime ago, a lifetime when trust flowed freely between us. Sarah, please. I pushed the despair away, searching for the remnants of hope. You're stronger than this. I believe you can step back from the edge. We can face the truth together, no matter how painful. The gun still trembled in her grip, and for a moment, the silence resonated like a heartbeat. Jones shifted cautiously, his eyes darting back and forth between us, glancing toward the door where the echoes of authority loomed larger than life. Let me help you, I urged, striving to reach for any part of her that still believed in the possibilities of redemption. We can find answers about your father, about everything. But this is not the way. But Sarah's features hardened, an iron mask slipping over her vulnerability. Help? How can anyone help me knowing the truth? Her voice choked on the last word, the bitterness flashing back like a cruel reminder of her shattered faith in those around her. Just then, Emily stepped forward, her hands lifted placatingly. Sarah, listen. You don't need to suffer alone. Please, talk to us. Let's find a way to mend this. You hold the power to change this narrative. For the first time since we'd entered this stormy darkroom of our lives, Sarah's expression softened, the lines of her anguish flickering like the dance of a fragile flame. But then, the shadows of doubt swept back, cloaking her in a melancholy that left her staring blankly into the void of her own memories. Everything is tainted, Emily. My father's death lies in the ashes of deception. Her voice wavered, cracking like thin ice. I thought you were all safe spaces. But now I swear we're trying to protect each other. Rafe stepped up beside me, his voice steady, resonating with the bond that once held us all tightly together. The truth isn't just black and white. There's a spectrum of shades here. You don't have to shoulder this alone. That I can't risk losing everything again, she whispered, the tremor in her voice betraying her heartbreak. The sweat on her brow caught the light, glistening like the salty remnants of unshed tears. then all at once, the exterior world crashed in, the urgency of the police echoing harshly around us. Jones, sensing the hesitation, moved closer, his voice gentling further. "You're not going to lose anyone. This isn't how your story ends, Sarah. If you lay down the weapon, we can talk this through. No one's your enemy here." As he spoke, I saw a flicker of hope mingled with disbelief cross her face. It stirred something deep within me, a desire to remind her of the tether she once felt toward us, the bonds woven through laughter on quiet nights, plans for the future, and a love that once felt impenetrable. As her grip loosened, I reached out, anchoring myself to her with my presence alone. "Well, face it all. Just take that step, Sarah. Let us be your strength." In a moment that seemed to stretch forever, she hesitated, teetering on the brink of promise and despair. The weight of the gun slipped further down her arm, but chaos loomed closer, the approaching voices blending with the cacophony of emotions thrumming in the air. Suddenly, just as the gun was almost at her side, the last shadow of doubt plunged her back to the edge. "What if you just say that now? What if you still betray me?" The gun trembled. What if at that, an unexpected noise gripped us, the shrill beep of an incoming message from her phone, cutting through the tension like a knife. In her moment of distraction, I seized the briefest second. "Don't let your uncertainty chain you to this moment, Sarah. Look. Listen to me." I directed her gaze toward her phone, which had buzzed again, the screen lit up with a name that froze my blood, Martin. A shattering silence ensued. The name echoed louder than any proclamation we had summoned in that chaotic moment. It was joined by the sirens now blaring outside. As she glanced at the screen, uncertainty washed over her once more. Was it a message from him? Was he even a part of this seemingly chaotic fate? "John!" she yelled suddenly, surrendering to a whirlwind of emotion sparked by betrayal and fear. "What does this mean? Why now?" And before I could answer, before I could navigate the storm, I noticed something far worse. Her resolve, murked by confusion, had transformed back to anger, and the gun's trajectory was shifting towards me. In that suspended moment, while the world outside screamed for control, I could almost taste the bitterness of betrayal. The storm was more than losing Sarah, it was the blurred lines of love, trust, and the haunting question of whether we had all been puppets dancing to the tune of an unseen puppet master. "John." The truth, she stammered, her eyes wildly flickering, tearing between recognition and rage. Then we all heralded the impending chaos as footsteps hammered into the room. I held my breath, praying silently that the explosive revelations of the moment wouldn't tear us all apart irreparably, and with the almost certain impact of her words hung in the balance, we all stood on the precipice, teetering towards either rescue or catastrophe. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting and warping as the bright lights from the policemen outside poured through the doorway, illuminating fractured memories, raw emotions, and an uncertainty that seemed to seep beneath our skin. My heart raced, trapped in the gravity of Sarah's gaze, where the pain of betrayal fused with a horrific sense of desperation. "John." The truth, her voice shook, echoing in my mind like the rapid beats of a haunting drum. I could see the whirlwind of emotions churning behind her eyes, a storm that threatened to drag us both under. I took a small step forward, testing the waters alive with tension. "Sarah, listen to me." I pleaded, trying to push through the cacophony of her doubts, our shared history gnawing at the fabric of our conversation. "Whatever Martin told you, or whatever it is you think you know, it's not the whole truth. Please, can't you see that?" She laughed bitterly, her laugh devoid of joy, echoing like a haunting specter. "The truth? No, John, you don't get to dictate what the truth is anymore. You've been keeping things from meetings about Martin, about us, and now you stand there, asking me to trust you again." A part of me recoiled at the accusation, feeling the weight of a wall I once thought solid beginning to crumble beneath the onslaught of her disappointment. "I would never betray you, Sarah. I swear. Martin, he's the reason I'm in this mess," she screamed, directing the trembling barrel of the gun towards me, grounded in rage and terror. "Your father," I began, only to falter under the weight of words that might break her even further. "He was trying to protect you, and you knew all along. The bitterness sliced through her as easily as the gun's cold metal could pierce flesh. I could see the flicker of hope extinguish behind her eyes, replaced with stark realization. What could I say? The secret spun into webs that tangled around the core of our lives. I wanted to tell you, and then everything spiraled out of control, I confessed, the urgency weighing heavy in my chest. With a violent shake of her head, Sarah stepped back, her own sobs caught in her throat, mixing with fury. No, John. You turned away. You left me to face my demons alone while you played the role of the loyal friend. Rafe stepped forward, trying to mediate, but the tumultuous emotions ripped through us like a tidal wave. Sarah, we all are trying to figure this out together. But threatening John won't give you the answers you're seeking. Your fidelity is a mere illusion, she spat, radiating an aching vulnerability cloaked under layers of distrust. How can I stand here with you, knowing that everything you've said is tainted by betrayal? In that moment, I saw the fabric of our lives unravel thread by thread. The laughter we had once shared, the secrets whispered under moonlight, all now felt like bitter echoes tainted by mistrust. The idea of losing her was unbearable. I promise we can unearth the truth together. Just let me explain. The weapon charged our words with an electrifying tension, the depths of her pain pressing heavily against my chest. Then, out of the blue, her phone buzzed again. It felt like an otherworldly intervention, a tether reaching towards some form of salvation. What if he's in danger? I pressed, desperate for her to realize that perhaps we were being manipulated. Her eyes glanced briefly at the screen before hardening once more. You don't get it. It's Martin's name that's been cast into our lives like a shadow, and as she paused, her breath shaky against the gun's grip. What do I even do with that? Martin is a catalyst, but he isn't the villain he's portrayed to be, I urged, edged closer to her as I witnessed her inner turmoil wrestle with the reality. We need to reach the heart of this misunderstanding, Sarah. Please, put down the gun, and let's untangle this together. The tension hung in the air, reaching across the chasm that lay between us. Your bond with him, it's a lie, John. What if you are just another pawn in his unpredictable game? Before the weight of her suspicions could unravel further. Her phone vibrated again, a haunting omen in a moment thick with uncertainty. The room fell eerily silent as she hesitated, torn between her emotions and the promise of urgent revelations that beckoned her from the screen. A loud crack thundered through the air, booming like thunder, and I instinctively flinched, raising my hands defensively even as I fought against the wild escalation. The gun was still quietly wavering in her grasp, and the air turned suffocating with unsaid words. Sarah, don't. I shouted against the storm of her confusion, my heart racing in a dissonance echoing both fear and the tremors of hope. She glanced at me one last to me, a fleeting hesitation flickering across her features, a moment where vulnerability intermingled with rage. You don't understand, she whispered, the gun still, yet an abyss of pain swirled behind her eyes. I may lose everything or lose you, and with it, my sanity. What can I trust? And at that juncture of fear and resolve, the incoming footsteps thudded into the raptured cocoon of our confrontation, and the heavy weight of revelation hung in the air as the world outside collided with our fractured reality, each footfall marking the final countdown to a truth that could redefine the very foundations of trust and love we built. John, the first need to know, she breathed out in a threadbare whisper as the door swung open, surrendering uncertain futures into the chaos that awaited us. The aftermath of the chaos engulfing us settled into a surreal silence as the police officer's presence filled the doorway. The weight of the world seemed to press down on Sarah as she stood there, the gun trembling in her hands, uncertainty swirling in her eyes like a storm threatening to break. The cacophony of emotions weaved a tapestry harsh and raw, hanging heavy in the air like fog that refused to lift. Put the weapon down, Sarah. Jones barked, his tone a mix of authority and urgency. I could feel the tension spiral, the gravity of her choices pulsing with each heartbeat, like the ticking of a clock counting down to an uncertain fate. Don't you dare come closer. She shouted, her voice thick with desperation, but deep down I saw the flicker of resolve waver, caught between the turmoil raging inside her and the reality pressing in from all sides. Sarah, please, this isn't how you want your story to end, I pleaded, inching closer despite her warning. With each step, I felt her pain resonate in my own chest, the familiar ache of love laced with confusion threatening to drown us both. This isn't who you are. We can face it together. Face what, John? She responded, rage kindling anew. Face the broken trust. The shadows of lies that taunt me. If I lay this down, it's like laying my heart bare, and what good has that done me? At that moment, a psychic shift coursed through the room as we all felt the reverberation of her words, the raw honesty behind them igniting the shadows that skulked in the corners of our lives. And suddenly, the police officer stepped back, his uncertainty pairing with hers, as if they could somehow neither comprehend nor interrupt the tempest brewing between pain and vulnerability. What was it like, John? She demanded, her voice a fragile whisper that trembled at the edges. To throw me into this abyss when you could have protected me from it all. My heart sank at her question, the charge of her emotions tearing through whatever semblance of understanding I thought we still shared. I didn't know, Sarah, I confessed, untangling the words that had been knotted in fear. I had no idea how deep the betrayal ran. Please, just let me explain. But as the room fell silent once more, her resolve started to buckle beneath the weight of truth she could no longer evade. She pressed the gun to her temple, frustration mingled with fear as her fingers trembled. I can't trust anyone anymore. In those agonizing moments, I could see the shards of her resolve splinter, struggling to hold on to the one thing that had kept her tethered to everything she once believed. This isn't the solution, Sarah. I cried, my voice pleading as I took another cautious step forward. We can uncover the whole truth together. If you let this gun go, I promise we can find a way through this chaos. A single tear rolled down her cheek, splitting the mask she wore wide open. For an eternity, the world seemed to hang suspended, and in that silence, I sensed her questioning within, a reckoning unfolding in the depths of her soul. The fragility of our bond glinted in it. Could we resurrect what had been eroded by deceit, or would we remain just broken echoes of each other? And then the phone buzzed again, an interruption that shattered the stillness. Distracted, she glanced at the name on the screen. It flickered to life, and my heart sank further. Martin's name, now etched into our lives, like a haunting specter that refused to leave. I saw her resolve splinter in that moment, panic pooling in her eyes. Every lie, every shadow, all of it rooted back to you, John. To him. To the chaos that our lives spiral around. Her fingers trembled around the trigger, a desperate anchor to her faltering sense of control, and I knew if I didn't act now, I could lose the woman I once knew entirely. Remember the vows we took? I asked, my voice thick with emotion. They weren't just words, they were promises that we would fight through our darkest storms. You're not alone, Sarah. Vows don't comfort me in the dark corners of betrayal, she whispered, the gun wavering, caught between the turmoil. Churning inside her and the truth I wanted to break free. In that moment, I reached out, fully aware that this defiance could be the silent heartbeat that would either bind us together or propel us into chaos. We've wandered into a place of shadows, but I'm still here. If you can take a breath with me, we can bring light back to those corners, together. As her breath hitched, I continued, striving to pull her from the precipice. You might not trust me now, but trust that nothing can change our story if we choose to let love be the thread that we cling to. I'm standing here, bare and vulnerable. I'm here for you, Sarah. The walls of her anguish cracked then, the light of recognition skimming across her eyes like a soft dawn brushing the horizon. John, she breathed, disbelief entangled with yearning. It was enough. The shifting currents of our shared pain opened room for a new spark, igniting a tether between heart and hope. See it for what it is. This chaos has been running rampant in the shadows, but we can face it together, I urged, a tentative smile breaking through the shadow of despair. Just like we promised under those stars. The gun lowered slightly, her gaze wavering as she fought against the weight of despair. But what if I can't? She faltered. What if the truth still holds darkness? Hold my hand, I whispered, stepping closer, feeling the charge of the moment tether us in this eye of the storm. Let's face light amidst the shadows we built together. And at that moment, it felt like hope mingled with possibility, fragile yet resilient. She could choose, and I could see a flicker of realization dance in her eyes. I don't want to lose you, she said quietly, the gun faltering still in her grip. Then don't Don't let the ghosts take control, I replied, my voice soft yet unwavering. I'll fight to uncover everything with you. All of it. With one last deep breath, she took a step back and dropped the weapon to the floor, echoing hollowly, a sonorous thud that shattered the tension holding us captive. Panic fled from her eyes, turning instead to vulnerability softened by relief. I want to believe. I want to trust that. I closed the distance between us, wrapping my arms around her as two broken souls clung desperately to the promise of repairs, a new beginning etched out of the ruins we would uncover together. Her warmth filled the spaces left hollow, and intertwined, we breathed. I could feel the doubts begin to lift as the storm weakened, together standing in the fragile space between heart and healing. That I, in the midst of chaos, I whispered the promise softly to her ear, let's find the truth together, one breath at a time. And as sirens blended with distant murmurs, I felt our lives turning full circle toward an uncertain dawn, the road ahead still fraught with shadows, yet illuminated by the light of undeniable love. As the sun began to rise beyond the horizon, I knew that even in the depths of the darkest storms, we could still claim our story, one woven from the powerful resilience of togetherness. And as I held her in that sacred moment, I finally understood, in the end, love finds a way through the maze of pain, turning despair into hope, one heartbeat at a time.